Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're so happy to have you join us for our fourth and final presentation. This is the Plainfield Parent Community Network, fourth presentation on digital safety, a four-part series, and tonight's event is Preventing Unwanted Online Solicitation. This is our fifth year for Plainfield Parent Community Network. Our presentation, the PowerPoints both in English and Spanish, can be found online at plainfieldpcn.org. We'd like to thank our sponsors for this evening, Plainfield Counseling Center, Seminar Marketing Pro, and Kwame Raoul's Illinois Attorney General's Office. Plainfield Parent Community Network is a volunteer network of parents, educators, and professionals committed to creating resources and opportunities for mental health support and education in the Plainfield community, whose mission is to provide lifelong learning in our ever-changing society, working in collaboration with school, home, and community. You can find us on the web at plainfieldpcn.org, on Facebook at Plainfield Parent Community Network, and Twitter, PPCN Network 202. Any questions or comments can be sent to plainfieldpcn@gmail.com. And if you do have any questions this evening, we ask that you put them in the chat so that we can answer them or address them at the end of the presentation. Your speaker tonight, Carolyn Orr, is an Internet Safety Specialist with the Illinois Attorney General's Office, High Tech Crime Bureau, ICAC Task Force. Her role involves public outreach, research, education, and prevention. She also teaches college sociology, social psychology, and criminology with a background in social and behavioral sciences. Her overall goal within these positions is to spread awareness, encourage positive leadership among youth, promote safety, and prevent further victimization of innocent children and families. So again, without further ado, I can't thank you enough for joining us, Carolyn, these past three sessions and again this evening. And the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much. Again, thank you for having me. And also for those of you that have participated, thank you so much for joining in. It's been a really good past 4 weeks. So if you have joined on the previous webinars in the past few weeks, or maybe seen some of our webinars in the past, these first couple of slides will be a repeat, but I do want to repeat them just so that way if anybody is new, you might, if you don't understand, or if you haven't heard of ICAC before, you just know a little bit about who we are. So we are part of the Illinois Attorney General's Office. So it's part of the Illinois state government. And within that, we have the High Tech Crimes Bureau. And within that, we have the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, also known as ICAC for short. And every state actually has one. And it's a federally funded program, except each state handles their own. And each state gets, the funding is a little bit different across the different states, even though it's federally funded, but it kind of depends on the needs of that state. And they're all ran a little bit differently, but the mission across all of the ICAC, units in every state is that we prosecute and investigate child exploitation cases. So we have a large number of people that we work with, people that have different roles and responsibilities. We have attorneys that would go to court on behalf of the child to prosecute the crime that's happened to them, the criminal. And we've got forensics, investigative certs. So they have a lot of understanding of, how to retrieve evidence from technology and from different devices. We've got cybercrime analysts, cybercrime specialists, and then there's the research and education, public outreach, prevention kind of role, which is my role. But since November of 2020, there's been almost, actually, it's probably over 2,000 at this point. This is as of November, and I've said before, every week there's a couple search warrants and for arrests for different types of child exploitation cases. And, so since November 2020, the number is about 1,700, but that's gone up, in the past months. So we also train law enforcement agencies across the state. We've got some high-tech equipment that not every district or not every jurisdiction has, or maybe if it's a small town, they might not have all the high-tech equipment that they need to retrieve evidence from, technology. So we have people that can train the officers. We can help with cases. If anybody saw the news, it might have, I'm not sure if it was on the evening news. I watched it live this morning, but we actually had, I wasn't down there, but in Springfield today, there was a press conference with the Attorney General, and he was talking about the spike in cases that have gone up over the last year, possibly as a result of COVID, and just sort of the increase in child exploitation cases over the past few years. So they really wanted to, make sure that we're bringing it to the public's attention, that this is not a joke. It's not something that only happens once in a while or something that we see on TV. The types of cases that you'll hear about throughout this webinar and the past webinars, we're seeing these things every day. And it's oftentimes, families that never thought that this could happen to their child, or never thought that their child was even talking to somebody that they wouldn't expect them to talk to, or sharing personal information, or exchanging explicit photos or something like that. So sometimes when we think that it couldn't be our child, or we think that could never happen to us, that might make us a little bit more vulnerable and a little bit more likely, because we might not be paying attention as often as we should, or we might not be thinking we need to have those ongoing safety talks with kids. So we also work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and they run the National Clearinghouse for cyber tips that come in. So by law, all of the internet service providers, apps, websites, if they see any exchange between minors or between an adult and a minor of sexual conversation or inappropriate conversation, or something that is indicating that a crime is either about to take place or taking place, they have a mandate to report that to law enforcement. So they make reports to the cyber tip line. And this is a national program. So then what happens is they will investigate. And then if they do some tracing on, IP addresses and things like that, if it comes up to a case that would be in Illinois, then it comes to us, and then we take it from there. So it kind of just branches out. These cases get sort of farmed out to the proper jurisdictions that would handle them, or the proper agencies. So, and you probably heard me mention before in the past few webinars that we actually have dogs too. We've got electronic detection dogs, and they really do help us to find evidence when we need help with that. So some of the things that we'll talk about tonight when it comes to online solicitation: who, what, how is it happening? What are some of the warning signs? How can we prevent it? And always, in all of the webinars, we consistently want to make sure that you have the resources to report. You can always report to us, but you can also use that cyber tip line. Know that that's out there, know it exists. It's not, you don't have to pay for it or anything. You just go online, and you never know when you're going to come across something that is just not sitting right with you, or something that's floating around on the internet where you think a child is in danger. You can always make a report. Somebody can definitely look into that. So to start off, it's always a good thing to make sure that you're doing an account check-in. So talk to your kids consistently, every once in a while. I don't mean you have to do this every single day, but talk to them about online safety every once in a while. Don't wait until after something has already happened. Do it right away, right as they start kind of using the internet from a young age, as they start to use new apps, because they're going to go through a lot of different phases and how they use the internet, how they use social media, how they use gaming. Those things will kind of change over time, who they connect with, how they connect, what they post. Those things are going to, alter and shift as they reach different age groups. So always take a look at their profile pictures that they're posting. Encourage them not to use their face in the pictures. Encourage them to use, kind of generic pictures of maybe a cartoon character that they like, or maybe a sports logo or something like that. But keeping their actual face out of the photos is the safest way to go. We also want to make sure that we're checking privacy settings. If you don't know how to do that, you can just go onto their device, look for the little gear symbol, and whether it's an Android or an iPhone, just look for the little gears, click on that, open up privacy, and you'll have a lot of options in there. So for some people, they're well aware of that. They already knew that was there. But sometimes we get a new phone and we want to do all the fun stuff, but we don't even look at the privacy settings, and we don't always know what kind of options that we have on there. So it's a good idea to take a look at that, look at your privacy settings, and definitely if your child has their own devices, look at the privacy settings. One thing to remember is that sometimes people think that if they set up the privacy settings on the device itself, on the phone or on the tablet, they think that those same settings will apply to all of the apps or games that they have on that phone. all of those apps, all of those games that they use, all have a different set of privacy settings. So if you're interested in learning about the different privacy settings that there are for that, we do have a webinar on that. We'll probably be getting back to that in the summer. I think late June or mid-July, we'll be doing one on that where we go through what are your options in the popular apps like TikTok and Instagram. So if you're interested in that, you can email me and I'll make sure I put you on the contact list for when those other webinars come out in the summer. But we want to make sure that we're looking at friends and followers. Who are the people that our children are talking to? If you're looking at their friends list and you see a few people that you don't know who they are, you're not sure, ask them, who is this person? What kinds of things do you talk about? Bring up those questions. And it doesn't always have to be, done in an accusatory tone where you're getting mad at them, because then they might, retract a little bit and they might not want to tell you who that person is. But if you kind of come at it with sort of a curious kind of tone, they might be more willing to say, oh, that's this person, or I met this person in a game and they're really good at this. And then you can kind of dig in a little bit more as to what type of, communication are they having? What kinds of things are they talking about? Is it appropriate for their age? And is it up to your approval for safety? And also, talking to them about their posts on social media, making sure that they're well aware how a post, how a picture, how a video can impact their future, how those things never truly go away. They're always out there once they're on the internet, and just making sure that they're reminded of that. Because a lot of times kids are not thinking long term, they're very much in the moment, and they will just put something out there and it could come back to, haunt them in a very negative way, or it could even, take away an opportunity from them. There's been a lot of instances where kids put something online and then, their coach sees it and then they get in trouble on the team, or they didn't make it onto a team because someone saw it, went viral in the town, or even chances for getting into colleges and things like that. And I know that we don't always agree that, not everyone agrees that that should even be okay for people to, because some people think, well, my social media life is different than my professional life, but that is how people look up information on us. And that oftentimes is going to be how people will make a decision if, your child is right for the team, or if this person's going to be a team player, if this person fits the, type of person they want for the profession or the job or something like that. So we just need to keep those things in mind. So online enticement is the use of the internet to persuade, coerce, or entice a minor to engage in sexual activity. When it comes to these type of occurrences or these types of behaviors from people that are doing the enticing, about 34% of them are trying to get a child to engage in a sexual conversation. So they might start off, a lot of times kids they don't fully understand, what this person is talking about, but these people can be pretty good with how they do it. They can start grooming them in a specific way where they slowly introduce them to things that are not appropriate for their age, that parents don't want their kids talking about these things with strangers. And what they do is they do it in a very slow way where they introduce things little by little. And then they might even, if this person is talking to your child without you knowing, they might even start to send them videos and say, hey, look at this. Doesn't this look like it would be fun? Or doesn't this look like, that might feel good, or something like that? And gets them to think that it's something normal. They might even send them images of child pornography or child sexual abuse material to get your child to think that it's normal for kids to be doing this too. This is not just for adults. They might use that as a way to kind of convince and coerce the child to believe that, this is normal. It's okay that we're talking about this. So why don't you send me a picture of yourself with no clothes on, or something like that? They'll do those types of things to convince them. 33% of those situations, they're asking for explicit images too, not just trying to do some kind of sexual role play or introducing them to sexual topics or, a number of different things, but also trying to get them to take pictures of themselves in sexual ways without clothing on. In some cases, they will convince young kids to get their little brothers and sisters to also not take pictures of themselves, but they'll ask them to go take explicit pictures of their brothers and sisters and send it to them. This was not last summer, but the summer before, I was at an investigative training, and I might have brought this up in the last webinar, I can't remember, but I remember thinking that, the majority of kids would probably say, no way, that's gross. My parents would kill me. Why would I do that? And it's so sad when, when you read through some of these actual conversations and you can see it firsthand how easy it is for someone to convince a child that it's okay or that it's normal, or just get them to say yes. I've seen some conversations where one stands out in my mind where a young girl was being asked by an adult man to send naked pictures. And you can see in the conversation, he asks her, she says, no, I don't think I should do that. And it only took about 2 more sentences of this man to convince this girl to change her mind. It was, something along the lines of, but don't you trust me? I trust you and we really like each other. And then right after that, it was, all right, I guess I'll do it. So sometimes we don't think that kids would do that because we think that either they know better or we think that it would just be weird and they would shut that down. But sometimes when they've been talking to someone for a long time, they have this trust established. They feel like, it's okay. Nobody has to know. They aren't thinking about where that picture is going to go. They aren't thinking about the consequences of that. And they give in, unfortunately. So especially after, like I said, after trust is established. So after they develop that positive rapport with the child. So a lot of times, most of the people that are doing this are pretending to be younger, so they have fake photos, fake accounts, and they're very smart with how kids use the internet because that's, if that's what they're doing and they're trying to entice children, they pay attention to what kids do. So they are well aware that many times kids will check if they're talking to someone that they don't know and they're not too sure about them. Most kids and adults too will say, I'm going to check and look at their other social media accounts and see if the pictures are all the same of the same name and see if they all line up. And then that must be proof that this is the person that I'm talking to. It must be proof that they are who they say they are, because how could they have all these different accounts? But predators know that. So they're going to make an Instagram with these fake pictures that they found on the internet of a child somewhere and say it's them. And then they're going to make a Facebook, or they're going to make a Snapchat. They're going to make all these different accounts in different places with that same name and that same photo. So it appears to the child that this must be a person telling the truth. This must really be a 12-year-old. So they believe it. So they're pretending to be younger, but a lot of times, even when they say their true age, so even when these people are talking to kids and trying to get their trust and trying to get them to befriend them or even have some kind of online relationship, sometimes they don't even pretend like they're younger because they know that many kids think it's cool to be friends with somebody older, or they think it's kind of an exciting thing. I've got this older friend, maybe they're 14 and they think, oh, this person I'm talking to is 20. Isn't that cool? So a lot of kids don't even need to be convinced with an age similarity. Some of them will easily just think, hey, I've got this older friend. Or if they're having trouble with parents, or they feel unheard, or they're feeling, like no one's paying attention to them or no one's listening to them, they might be more likely to talk to someone that's older because they're looking for some kind of comfort from someone. So according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the study and data that they put out, about 60% of these cases include sexual content. 32% are actually going to meet with the child to attempt to have sex with them, or did. 8%, these are the lower numbers, but 8% have explicit conversations and like the role play that we kind of talked about and introducing those concepts to kids. And about 2% are trying to get money from them, trying to get them to give up bank account numbers or credit card numbers and somehow get money, especially now with all the cash apps that exist out there. Kids are using them too with their parents. So that way, sometimes parents are sending their kids some, spending money on Venmo or something like that. So kids have a lot more access to parents' money nowadays than they did before. So that's also something that might even be a growing issue or a growing threat. So the victims tend to be mostly female, but this is just what we know in terms of what's reported. Oftentimes, studies will show that young boys, when they are being abused in some way, if they are being sexually molested or assaulted in some way, boys, a lot of times girls don't report that, but boys have an even lower likelihood to report that because of a lot of those expectations out there that are placed on young boys to, they're supposed to be the tough ones, or, people have this expectation that, a girl couldn't possibly do something to them because they should be able to fight the girl off, or they must have, even young teen boys, people will say, well, why didn't you want it? You're supposed to want, sexual activity. So a lot of times when young males are either enticed by someone online or the victim of, something that has happened in person, whether it be a family member or a stranger, they are even they have a lesser likelihood to tell someone about it because they know that it's going to make them possibly look weak in someone else's eyes, because we put these messages out there in society, right? Sometimes. I think a lot of people are trying to definitely work on that these days, so we don't have that problem. But we see a higher, percentage of female victims. We see a higher percentage of male offenders. There's also, that doesn't mean that it can't also be women. There are people all across the board that are enticing children, but these are just kind of to get kind of a look at what it looks like in terms of who's doing it. Victims tend to be, it could be any child, really. It could just be a child that was easy to access for someone. It could be someone that doesn't have their accounts on private, all their accounts are public, so they're wide open to people that are looking to do that. But oftentimes it's children that are trying to pursue friendships with maybe older people, trying to pursue friendships because maybe they're having trouble getting friendships in school. If it's a child that has problems with, bullying at school, if kids are bullying them and maybe for some reason they are having some troubles making friends, sometimes those kids end up being more vulnerable because they're going to the internet to look for friends, or they're trying to make connections through gaming or through Snapchat or something like that. And sometimes that can make them more vulnerable to these problems. Kids that have low self-esteem, those kind of roll into, the same problem. If they're attention seeking, sometimes they might have all the love in the world at home and they might have all the friends in the world, but some kids still are craving even more attention. So looking at the root of maybe what's causing that can help to reduce them having a likelihood of being victimized. And some kids are just very innocent and very naive, and they aren't conceiving of all the possibilities that are out there because kids don't always know of all the horrible things that exist in the world. That's a great thing about being a kid. You don't always know, until you are older, until you're educated and are exposed to a lot more. They don't always know what could happen to them. They're having fun in a game, they're having fun on the apps. So they're not always aware that just a regular conversation that seems just like a, normal chat with someone, to them, they don't know when it's happening to them. So if something, if someone is sending messages to your child, what do you think your child would say? How do you think that they would reply? Will they send a picture if this person is asking them for inappropriate pictures? Do you think that they would be frightened by it? Do you think that they would come and talk to you about it? These are all things that, one, you should ask yourself about it, but two, talk to your kids about it. Every once in a while, have a sit down with them. You don't have to tell them all of the things that are, possible that could hurt them, because you don't want to scare them. But in a good way, you can talk to them about, the risks, the dangers, put it in age appropriate terms for wherever they're at, or age appropriate language. And another thing that you can do is you can give them scenarios. You can say, what if someone says this to you? And give them a little background. Say, this person says they're 12, you think they're really cute, or you think they're really fun, and you're talking for a few days and you're talking about things that you love, and you can bring up things that they can kind of fit into their story, things that would be realistic. You could say, like, they're talking to you about baseball. Maybe they love baseball, and they're talking to you about your favorite movie and your favorite game, Minecraft. What if then one day they ask you this, or they ask you if you can send them pictures without a shirt on or something like that? What would you say? And get it in their mind already, not to be scared of it, but to kind of, so they can already start to have that picture in their mind of how they would navigate that situation. That way, if it does happen, they already know that they need to come to you. They need to know that they need to make a report, and not be shocked in that moment. That way you can kind of already prep them for a situation. So sextortion is, for some reason, I feel like I mentioned this in the last webinar. I'm not exactly sure, because sometimes I'm doing different ones for different places. So sometimes I might say the same thing. But either way, if it came up, you might have heard me talk about this before, but if it didn't, this is a growing crime. We get a lot of cases that have to do with sextortion. So if you haven't heard of it, it is similar to, the old fear that everyone had about, using chat rooms and using AOL Instant Messenger when it first came out. And what I've been talking about, people are going to lie about their age and they're going to try to meet up with children. Well, now what's happening, that is still happening, definitely. But there's a lot of cases where now, instead of trying to meet up with that child, they'll say, I want you to send me a naked picture. We've been talking, they'll do it in a savvy way. So sometimes they will spend a long time talking to the kids. They might even, I've had some kids tell me, I had some middle schoolers say, that's not going to happen. No, nobody's going to talk to me for a whole year, online. They're going to get bored and they're going to leave me alone. But some of these people are good at what they do because they want something from kids, unfortunately. So they will talk to the kids for a very long time. They'll establish that trust. They'll get them to think that, they have something special between them, something trusted. And at a certain point, they might say, we've been talking for a really long time. I trust you. You trust me. We like each other. Why don't you send me a sexy picture? Why don't you send me a picture, showing me a little something like that. And like I was saying before, they will convince the child to do it. And if the child does do it and sends it to them, then what happens is they use it as blackmail. And they will threaten that child and say, I've got this picture of you now. If you don't send me more, now I'm going to send this to everybody at your school. Or now I'm going to send this to your parents. Or I'm going to put it up all over the internet. Everyone on your Instagram is going to see it. Or I'm going to send it to, your church members or something like that. So they scare them and they threaten them. And the kids who have done this are so scared to tell their parents. They are ashamed of what they've done. They don't want anyone to see it. They definitely don't want their parents or teachers to find out. So they're stuck in this situation where they don't have anyone to turn to. They're scared to, they're embarrassed. So they keep giving this person what they want because they believe that this person is going to keep it a secret if they keep giving them what they want. And there have been a lot of cases like that. And it seems like, I keep hearing, every time I hear about this and every time we talk about it, within ICAC, it's more and more cases every year. So sometimes the person will, they'll have a list of demands. It's usually for increasingly sexual imagery, increasingly explicit videos, sometimes including other kids, and they'll do whatever they can to get what it is they want. And then that person does all kinds of things with those pictures and those images. They put those on websites where child predators will circulate. Sometimes they can end up on websites on the dark web that involve child sex trafficking. So kids don't always know where that's going to go. And it's really scary. And there have been a few cases where, unfortunately, there was one case that stands out. A teenager actually took his own life. He was only 16 years old because this had been going on for about a year, where someone had been asking them over and over and over, send me more pictures, or your parents are getting the other one. And then he would do it. And then he just kept asking him, and he was asking him for money. He kept sending money. And it got worse and worse. And he still was too ashamed to talk to his parents about it. And it got to the point where the stress was too much. When we look at the numbers on this graph here, you can see the percentages for how often it's happening. When we're looking at the victims of 12 to 17-year-olds, the numbers are kind of low. I guess you could say relatively low. So, when you see something like age 12, 3.5% rate of victims in a sample of 6,000 kids, 3.5 doesn't seem like a lot to many people. Some people might say that's pretty low, so maybe it's not that huge of a crime. Or 3.5% is pretty low, so maybe we're worrying about it too much or over embellishing it. But when you think of 3.5% in the context of the entire school, in the context of the whole town, or in the context of the entire state, or even further, the context of the whole country or the globe, that's still a ton of kids. That is too many kids that are facing this, that are, being sextorted and going through this struggle and having their images out there. And sometimes, many times, parents having no idea that this is happening and that they're going through this. And a lot of times, it could end also in an endangerment of the child. So this is just kind of a few snapshots of different articles that were out there. But some warning signs, think this might be happening. A lot of times the person will tell the child not to tell the parents. So you want to tell your kids, if anybody ever says, don't tell, us about them, that means they're trying to hide their identity. So sometimes they might try to convince your child to make a new account or a separate account that you don't know about. They might say, oh, your parents know that, this Snapchat is yours. So why don't you make a separate Snapchat and we'll just talk on that one. And that'll just be a secret one between us. So make sure that kids are aware of that. Also, that person will sometimes encourage them to spend less time with friends, less time with family. And like I was saying before, they'll discuss sexual topics and photos, ask for personal and private information. They might even try to get your child to go to another app. So I always tell kids, if someone's been talking to you for a little bit and you think that that's your friend, and then they say, hey, we've been talking on Instagram for a bit, but why don't we download WhatsApp and we'll go over there and have conversations on that app instead. That can sometimes be, sometimes people just don't like an app, but that can also be a red flag that that person doesn't want their identity to be known by the child's other friends or anyone else on their social media that they're using. So they might try to remove the child from that platform, put them on a different platform and talk there where it could be more secretive, or have them create a new account. And I always tell kids too, if they notice they're talking to someone and they think it's a child their age, maybe they're in a game and they're talking to someone, if they notice, when I say talking, I'm talking about chatting and texting, messaging. If they notice that the person they're talking to, if all of the grammar is perfect, they spell everything great, it looks like, they're just a really great speller and their punctuation is perfect, and they're not using a lot of emojis or, slang that you and your friends would use, that might be a sign. And that's not always the case, but I tell kids that could be a sign that the person you're talking to isn't really the age they say they are. They might actually be an adult, because that is a sign that it might be an older, person typing, because of the, unless they're going out of their way to make sure they look like they're younger. But sometimes older people, even ones that are, trying to get into the lives of children and trying to convince kids of different things, sometimes they don't always know the slang that kids are using. So I always tell them, if you're talking to someone that doesn't talk the same way as you and your friends, it might be somebody that's older. They might also ask the kids for something inappropriate and say, I'll send you a gift, or I will send you money, or I'll send you this code to play a game. Almost every school I've gone to, I ask the whole audience. This was before COVID, when I was in the gym. I would ask, a whole school full of students, how many of you have ever been offered either a gift card that they would send you online, or have you been offered a code to play a game that you wanted to play, or even money that is inside of games? So like, for example, on Roblox, you can get Robux, even things like that. It's like, how many of you have been offered this in exchange for pictures of yourself? And I don't see a ton of hands, but I see enough hands in every school where you know that it's a problem and kids know that it's happening. There'll be a few here, a few there, and they'll talk about it too. They'll say, oh yeah, this one person said that they would send me the code to play this game, or they would send me, these items in this game that I needed, as long as I sent them a picture that was a naked picture. And, they all kind of giggle. They think it's kind of funny in the moment, but, we just want to make sure that kids know. You want to make sure you emphasize to them, that's a scam. They're not going to get the gift. They're not going to get to play the game. They're not going to get what that person is offering them, even though it sounds convincing or it sounds tempting. Make sure they know that they're not really going to get that. And some of them just want to believe it. They're like, oh, but that will be so cool if I can play this game, because, I don't have that game, or that will be so cool if I can get all of these weapons or all of these coins for this game, or whatever it is that they're trying to get. So predators know that those are the things that kids want. So they're trying to use those as ways to get things from them as well. This video right here is a short public service announcement that was put out by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children on sextortion.
Hey Zach, it's me. I can't stop thinking about you. I know you've been waiting for this for a while. I wanted to give you something special. Who are you?
Why are you doing this?
So this is, the next few slides are actually from a different webinar specifically on sexting. But since we're doing the enticement one, I wanted to make sure that I added some of this in there for you, just so you can get a little bit extra information in this webinar, and it's connected to the enticement. A lot of kids, people are asking them for these things. And the more that it happens, the more they think this is a normal thing. It's not always an online predator. Sometimes it's their friends. Sometimes it's their boyfriends or girlfriends. So sexting is the act of sending sexually explicit messages or images between electronic devices. Those can quickly go viral. They can spread very fast. There's been a number of schools that I've been to that have had problems with, naked images of their students circulating the school. It's causing a lot of problems, not only in their academic life and social life, but sometimes, like I said before, those pictures of kids sometimes travel much farther than we think. It doesn't always stay within those kids that are sending them and thinking it's funny. It can end up on all kinds of websites. It can end up in the hands of child predators that have some of these predators have very specific interests. And sometimes when they are trading with other people that engage in child sexual abuse, sometimes they have very specific interests in terms of, I know this is going to sound weird and it's horrible to even have to say it, but they'll say something like, I want to see a child that's about 5 years old with brown hair, this race, this height, things like that. So sometimes those pictures of kids end up in places where we would never even expect. And sometimes in the hands of people where, sometimes people say, well, it's just a picture, it can't harm them. But you never know if those people are going to actually try and seek out that child that they've found that matches the description of their typical victim. So we really want to talk to kids about the importance of, them not doing this. A lot of teens think that it's kind of normal. They think that it's a step in a relationship. So because of the fact that much of their relationships, a lot of the connection that they have is done through social media apps. I mean, it's not like teens don't see each other in person, but a lot of today's youth, a good portion of the communication in their relationship or their dating life is actually almost a fully online scenario, especially for teenagers that maybe aren't quite allowed to date yet. They might be just having sort of, a messaging kind of a relationship until they're able to be with a boyfriend or girlfriend in person. But a lot of teens have said that for them, they actually think it's kind of a safer sex because in their mind, they believe that they're doing something that is less harmful because they aren't engaging in sex quite yet, or maybe they aren't ready, or whatever the case may be. So they feel like sending a sexual picture to their boyfriend or girlfriend is kind of what they can do instead. They think it's a replacement. They know you can't get pregnant that way. You can't get an STD that way. You can't get in trouble, all of these different things. So they think sexy picture, no big deal. Everybody does it. Celebrities do it. What's the big deal if I do it? But they don't realize that it is illegal. It is considered child pornography, even if they've just taken it themselves. And like I said before, we're trying to kind of get away from the word child pornography, because a lot of times when people hear the term pornography, they're thinking of something that someone consents to and something that they're getting paid for. With kids, when someone is abusing them sexually, it's child sexual abuse material. But when kids do it of themselves, when they take pictures of themselves and send it to a boyfriend or girlfriend or send it to someone that's asking, it's still considered illegal content. It's still considered child pornography. And we also call it child sexual exploitation material, because in a way they are exploiting themselves and they don't always realize it. There was one story that I don't know if this was something that became a case, because I don't know if it spread on the internet, but I just remember hearing about when I first started the job, hearing about these little girls. They were like 3rd and 4th graders, and they were just hanging out at a friend's house, and they were curious. It wasn't even a sexual thing for them. These little girls were in the bathroom, and somehow a conversation started about what they have down there, and they were comparing with each other, and their phones were out, and they started taking pictures, and then they were sending it to their friends in kind of a very innocent kind of way, like, does yours look like this? Mine looks like this. And now these things are being sent between phones, and any kind of messaging app program, whether it be if they sent it through Snapchat or Instagram, or if they sent it just through, Messenger, if that gets flagged by the actual app itself or the messaging system itself, immediately that goes to law enforcement. If they flag it as if it looks like a child underage nude being sent, even if it was something innocent like that, it's going to get investigated. Obviously, that wasn't abuse. That was kids taking their own pictures, but it was a result of their own kind of natural curiosity. But sometimes they don't realize that, kids always have the phones with them. They always have their tablets with them. They are so used to parents now too taking pictures of them, just normal pictures, but taking those pictures so much and all the time that they don't always think that I shouldn't also take pictures in this way, or those little girls didn't think that they were doing anything wrong. They just thought they were sharing something with their other little friends that were 3rd and 4th graders, having a conversation among a group of girls. So we really want to make sure, it's uncomfortable, but spend that time to say, to talk to them. If anybody asks you for a naked picture, even if you're a teenager, and if it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend, bring it to the level of their age. Of course, you don't need to get too explicit, or, you don't need to get too deep into it. If they're really young, just say, if anybody asks you for a picture that doesn't seem like it's, sounds kind of strange or funny to you, make sure you come talk to me about it. With the teens, talk to them about relationships, talk to them about what makes a healthy relationship. Also remind them that they're going to face some pressure in relationships, at this time in life, with social media being everything, that they might be asked for an inappropriate picture. And it's not just that they're going to get in trouble for it, or that they might be embarrassed, but they're also committing a crime if they do that. They don't always realize that. Sometimes when I go to high school or high schools, and I bring this up and I say, did you know that, I don't ask them how many of them have ever done that, but many have. And I'll say, do you know that you've actually committed a crime? You've actually possessed child pornography. If you sent it to someone, you've distributed child pornography. And that's 2 crimes right there. And then if they continue to send it on, or you continue to send that to other people, the list goes on. So their eyes get wide, and they're just blown away by it. They have no idea that it's a criminal activity. They think it's a normal thing. So it's good to talk about it. As I've been saying, the repeat theme, have those conversations, talk about healthy relationships, let them know that, if their boyfriend or their girlfriend is trying to convince them every day to send a picture and says something like, well, if you love me, you'll do it. We see a lot of that kind of thing with teenagers. And sometimes the other person thinks, well, I love them and I don't want them to not like me anymore, so I'm just going to do it, even though it makes me uncomfortable, but I want them to know I love them. Sometimes they get caught up in that kind of thinking. Talk to them about, if they care about you, they don't need that. They're not going to need to get that from you. There are other ways to show affection. There are other ways to, share intimate moments, and it doesn't have to be doing something like that and then having those risks that are associated with it. Also acknowledge that kids do make mistakes sometimes, and sometimes maybe they've already made a mistake like that. And when you have the talk with them, they might not tell you, but they might be thinking, oh no, I've done this, or this person convinced me to do it, or this person said that, this would be between us, or something like that. Try to make sure that they know that they can always come talk to you. Listen, with sort of a more of a curious kind of a tone with them, that you care, and not that tone where, well, if you're going to do that, I'm going to take the phone away, or something like that, because then, they're not going to tell you stuff. They're not going to want you to know about it. So we've talked about relationships before. This site here has some information on parental controls. We can't, as the Attorney General's office, we're not allowed to endorse specific products. So I can't, advertise for parental controls that I think are better than others, but some features that you might want to look for on the different parental control apps and software programs. If you want to use them, you can look for call logging and blocking, text logging. Some of these programs will actually mirror the child's phone onto your phone. So your phones will be linked, and you can see the texts that they get as they're getting them. Sometimes some of them are set up so you can see the text that they receive before they get it, and you approve it or deny it. Even if they're downloading an app, you can see it first, and then you, as the parent, can decide if you approve of that app or not. And if you don't, it won't download on their phone. So you can do that's the app managing, location tracking, monitoring the website use. Every once in a while, check the search history on your child's laptop or tablet or phone. If you see that it's been cleared, that doesn't always mean that they're doing anything bad, but that could indicate that they're trying to hide something. So you might want to just have a talk about them, or talk with them about what kinds of things are they looking up, what are they looking at online. I saw a study not too long ago that showed that almost 50% of boys under the age of 12 have watched child pornography online. It's so easy. I mean, this is how kids are getting their education on sex. It's not education, but this is how they're trying to learn about those things when they're curious. And it's really young kids. It's not just boys, but in the study, boys were more likely to look those things up and to consistently go back to those websites. So it's also a good thing, like I said, just check that search history. If you see that they keep clearing it, ask them why they're clearing it, or even tell them they're not allowed to clear it because you want to see, what's on their search history. If you have a child that has come to you and told you that somebody that they were talking to for a while asked them for a picture of them in a sexual manner, and they didn't know the consequences at the time, or they feel bad about it, or they know that what they've done is probably not a good thing, whatever age they are, there is a way to get that off of the internet. We can't get it off of the whole internet all over the place because people screenshot, people text, things spread very fast, but there are attempts that can be made. So if you go to missingkids.com, so this goes back to the same as the cyber tip line, the Missing and Exploited Children, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They have a way that you can make a report if you think that an image of your child, a sexual image, a naked photo or something like that is out there. Sometimes, this might be used more often by teens, but if it's out there, you can report it. If you have the image, I don't know if you upload, I have to take a look at it again because I don't remember if you upload the actual image, because I don't think you can do that. If you are making a report on an image, let's say your child comes to you and says, this is what I sent this person last year and I should have told you, and now I'm scared that it's going to be all over the internet. If you are going to, let's say you're going to send it to the police, or let's say you're going to report it on the site, make sure that if they call it scrubbing, but make sure that you're deleting, Xing, or blocking out any body parts that are considered to be sexual body parts. So you want to, block a lot of it out, block the nakedness out, because you could actually get in trouble for uploading that stuff or sending it because it's considered child pornography and you don't want to be linked to that. So, but you can make a report here, and they have some really great technology. It's called photo DNA. If you're interested, you can YouTube something called Project, and they give you a little bit of an understanding of how that works. And it basically creates a copy of the picture, it makes a little bit of a pixelated map, and then they shoot that out to all of the different apps that you think it might be on. And then it tries to find a match anywhere on the entire app. And if it finds a match, it can scrub it and get it off of that app. And it can even detect if someone has altered the picture or changed it in some way, which some people will do. They might take a picture of a child that's in a bathing suit and then someone makes it look like they're naked. That happens to adults too. So if you see something like that, you can make a report. If your kids come to you, or, even if this is mostly geared towards kids, but I have had adults say, I did something in a dating scenario. Can I get that taken off of the internet if it's out there, if I've seen it? Some adults will say that, and they want to use this too. You can report it. They're going to prioritize kids, of course, because that is illegal. It's not illegal over the age of 18. But just so you know, that resource is out there. So at this time, I hope I didn't go too far over. What time is it? 7:19. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I got all that information out to you. But if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. I'll take a look and see if there's any questions in there. Let's see. My chat box doesn't want to pop up for some reason. I'm clicking it and nothing's happening. There you go. All
I
right.
don't
Well,
see any in there right now,
okay. If
but
anything, oh, go ahead.
no, please go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, if anything comes to mind after the webinar is over, you got my email on there and phone number, so you can always ask a question at any time.
So again, I can't thank you enough for being at all 4 of our events this year. Our 4 events on internet safety has been, again, the feedback that we've been receiving has been phenomenal. So I can't thank you enough for giving us your time and expertise and knowledge on how to keep our kids safe in this time where everybody seems to be on a computer. So I do think that we would love to have you back sometime next year as our Plainfield Parent Community Network begins to roll back into in-person sessions and or virtually still. It's a platform that we've all kind of gotten used to and is beneficial in many ways. So thank you again. This recording will be on our website on plainfieldpcn.com, as well as the PowerPoint presentations. There will be a survey that we will send out to you. Hopefully everyone's getting those after the presentation closes. We do look at those survey results and help determine our future events. I would also like to thank my fellow committee members, Jenny Hamby, Kai Freeman, Mary Ellen Miller, Brian Sorg, Christine Belcastro, and Corey Warden. And then again, if anybody has any need for CEUs, you can email me at talbores@psd202.org. So again, thank you everyone for your attendance, and we will see. I almost forgot to mention, we are planning on having our next event. We're still working out the details, but hoping to have something that we can publicize on school anxiety in the world of COVID and coming back to school full time and what that looks like. So like I said, we're still working out the details, but we hope to have that out fairly soon. That will be our first event for next year, ideally right before school starts. So from Plainfield Parent Community Network and me, Tim Albores, Director of Student Services, thank you so much for all of your time, Carolyn, and thank you to everyone else.
Thanks so much for having me, and have a great summer.